This video was brought to you by Squarespace. A complimentary review code for this DLC was provided by Nintendo and the Pokémon Company International. It's bite-sized. The similarities between the DK Bonanza and Pokémon Legends ZA DLC are very funny to me. I mean, the circumstances have been almost identical. Both were announced very close to each other in the same Nintendo Direct. Both felt poorly timed and caused a bit of a stink. DK's was announced very soon after launch, and Pokémon's before launch. From the start, both felt overpriced considering what it looked like they were offering. And funniest of all, they both take their respective base games and sort of remix them into a new mode, with slightly randomized, replayable, timed challenges. Not roguelites per se, but with similar elements. Yeah, I don't know, it seems weirdly specific. But now that I have played both, I can finally tell you the difference between these two downloadable contents. DK Bonanza's Emerald Rush takes an incredible game with shockingly fun mechanics and an exquisite world, and cleverly repackages everything so that it's fresh and appealing in a whole new way. Pokémon Legends ZA's Mega Dimension, on the other hand, takes a reasonably enjoyable, though largely mediocre and unabashedly cheap package, and stretches it so thin you can practically see through it. Because food analogies are just too fun to pass up, if Emerald Rush is the Thanksgiving meal remixed into a fantastic lunch the next day, Mega Dimension is a glass of fat-free milk, watered down to fill a gallon jug. This DLC sees the unlucky Lumiose struck with yet another weird catastrophe. Portals to a weird alternate version of the city are opening up all over the place, and inside are a bunch of crazy strong Pokemon. Even the weakest ones are above level 100, with the strongest going up to 200. I won't spoil the mystery, but basically the city residents have got to work together and stop all of this before it destabilizes too much and this Hyperspace Lumiose merges with the regular space Lumiose. Ansha is a new character here. She's this mysterious little girl who shows up with her Hoopa friend, and for some reason when Hoopa eats donuts, it gains the ability to bring a small team of people into these portals. So you gotta collect berries and use them as ingredients to create donuts so you can go into the Bizarro World portals, of course. What else would you do? The berries you use in the recipe determine how much your Pokemon levels get pumped up when you enter hyperspace, how long you can stay there before getting pulled back, and any other little perks like better catching or better item collecting or buffs for certain types, stuff like that. These hyperspace levels, they essentially take the idea of the ZA Royale and apply it to each of the other activities you find in the base game. So, base game Royale has you entering an area and seeing how many trainers you can take out within a time limit, and it gives you little challenges so you can earn extra points, with the goal of getting enough points to fill up your little meter so you can do your next story match and progress the story. In Mega Dimension, you've got levels that are basically the same thing. You drop into a place, you fight as many trainers as you can, and you do have little challenges to complete, although they're usually a lot more simple, straightforward, and the time limit is much, much harsher. But then, some levels are hyperspace wild areas where you can catch a handful of different Pokemon types. And here, filling your little challenges can be a lot trickier. And again, real strict time limit. When you run out of calories, you are done, period. Some of these hyperspace levels are even reserved for side quests where you do little story things or take on other trainers. And then best of all, IMO, the game's got a decent handful of new Mega Evolution battles. Some are more traditional battles, but then some are the whole Rogue Mega boss battle shebang, which is terrific because the Rogue Mega battles, that's some of my favorite stuff in the base game. And as you would expect, these are now timed based on what donut you use, which adds a whole new spin to the idea. There is a good amount of fun to be had in these hyperspace levels. I really liked the chaos of running into a wild zone and just kind of raiding it, and it's all crazy, and the Pokemon are all attacking you. And this is really that idea ramped up. It's not as claustrophobic, but it is still very intense. You gotta move fast because of that time limit. And of course, the Pokemon, their levels are all pumped up well over 100, so sometimes they can be very, very extra dangerous. And now my performance in these levels means a lot more. You know, the stakes are higher, I got stuff I really need to do, and it feels really, really good to perform really well, pick up everything I need, and, you know, make it just before the end of the time limit. And the very idea of going beyond level 100 is pretty darn clever, because, like, you know, all your Pokemon in your main team, they're all level 100, so, like, where do you go from there? How do you give the player new content? Well, this is a way. Now 100 is like the new baseline. You've got something new to work toward. You are not just automatically the best trainer in every situation, you know? And Pokemon has a tendency to be way too easy, so as with the base game, the best parts about this are when it is hard, when you are facing Pokemon that are just very, very powerful and you've got to play very well. And these levels, they generate pretty much infinitely. So, you know, if you're really, really into the game, this is just a lot more to do. And it's bite-sized. It's fun to just kind of jump in and mess around and be done. So it is often fun, particularly at the start. And on paper, the whole thing is a really good idea. On paper. The thing is, though, Hyperspace, this whole thing, really highlights pretty much all of the game's problems. Really, like pretty much every problem the game has becomes so much clearer, so much bigger, so much more of a nuisance in this mode. And mostly it just comes down to the time limit. Like when you take a time limit and you apply it to the whole rest of the game, suddenly these weaker elements just buckle under the pressure. Before we continue expressing our dissatisfaction concerning Pocket Monsters, I must remind you that this video was brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace makes building websites a breeze. No experience necessary. You don't have to write even a single line of code. Squarespace's intuitive builder is so easy to use. You can format and arrange things however you want, embed pictures and videos and all that. You can even start with a basic template and tweak it to meet your needs if you want to make things really simple. And before long, you got a slick website. You can build just about anything, something personal, something for your business. My site, Arlo Recommends, is a basic blog. So I just draft up my posts, schedule everything to automatically publish, and even push to social media at a later date, and I'm done. It basically runs itself. I just pop in every once in a while to check my analytics, which are built right in. And I know that if I ever need more, Squarespace offers lots of powerful extensions. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now, for today's recommendation, Skate Story Volume 1 by Blood Cultures. Okay, YouTube Music recommended this album to me, and I fell head over heels in love with it before I realized that this is the soundtrack for that game, Skate Story. You wouldn't know it was a soundtrack just by listening. It makes for a perfectly cohesive and immensely enjoyable listening experience all on its own. And it's introduced me to Blood Culture's other work, which is also amazing. Track number 2, Empty Lands, is genuinely one of my overall top songs of 2025. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now we can get back to doing that thing that we love to do so much. ZA's platforming elements are really, really undercooked. Like, you're supposed to be climbing up and around buildings and jumping and gliding, and yet just the controls, the way the character moves, the way the city is made itself, it's just very clunky, very underdeveloped. It did get the job done, and it was kind of a novel new thing for Pokemon, so it kind of evened out a bit. But now you've got these areas and you've got all this stuff you need to do, and you need to do it on a time limit, and every second matters. Oh, well, suddenly every little trip and tumble and fumble is 10 times more frustrating. It is 10 times more absurd that I'm expected to do any of this when the world and the controls are built the way that they are. Oh, and don't even get me started on just like trying to get around these buildings, trying to find my way onto the top of a building. I think that was probably my least favorite thing about the base game. Just running around in circles looking for a ladder or those like warpy pad things. Or trying to figure out how to get from one roof to another, but my glide thing is off by just like a single inch. It was just so frustrating. And now, again, it is that times 10. Now, I really, really desperately need to know how to get to this place, and I just can't figure it out. I'm constantly struggling. And even just like approaching the levels themselves, even when you're out in the regular world, now you've got that many more missions that you've got to like find in a weird corner or up on a roof somewhere. It's annoying. And like Pokemon being stupid, in the base game, it happened every once in a while, but it wasn't really a problem, you know? Like every once in a while, you try to attack another Pokemon or an object, and if the Pokemon can't like run to the spot that they want to, then they'll just like run in place for several seconds before like then launching the attack, or they'll just miss altogether. Yeah, like it's not so frequent that it like breaks the game. It's a minor annoyance. But now, you are always up on buildings. You are always surrounded by obstacles. There are these floating Pokeballs, and they have items, and they've got all of the berries that you really desperately need. So, and almost every single time you drop into a level, one of the challenges will be break however many floating Pokeballs. So between everything, you are constantly finding yourself in weird places or on weird ledges and trying to hit things with your Pokemon. Sometimes, like, in the heat of the moment, like you're getting killed by wild Pokemon and you just need to do this one thing, and yet the game will always, inevitably, like, target the wrong slime pile or just like whatever. Your Pokemon will always be running up to that ledge and just running in place for several seconds before they launch their attack. See, again, 10 times worse. It happens over and over and over again. These things were minor annoyances, but now they are so common. I'm not exaggerating. I'm really not. This is something that happens and like messes me up so incredibly often. I can't even tell you how many times I have failed to get the last extra special gold floating Pokeball, or do the last thing I needed, fill the last challenge, because of some annoying little controller thing. It did this when I wanted it to do that. Oh, these two actions are assigned to one button and the game thought I wanted this, or my stupid Pokemon just would not attack when I needed it to. It's really constant. And that gold ball, here's the thing, when you fill all of the challenges, then a big humongous gold Pokeball filled with berries appears somewhere in the level. You never know where it's gonna be. But this thing, it's almost like the reason you enter a level. It gives you so many berries that like if you don't get it, it can make one of these levels like feel pretty much worthless. And yet, good luck finding it. Good luck finding it. And even if you do know where it is, good luck getting to it in time with these awful controls of these stupid Pokemon. Sometimes it's a good feeling, you get it right at the last second, you know, the time limit, it adds a certain intensity to the experience, but especially as I got further and further, missing it just became so demoralizing. It felt so impossible to find the thing, or I would be like 1 second away from getting it, and then I ran out of time. It's just, ugh. Challenges are fun. Feeling like I'm being robbed at every turn is less fun. And then back to mega battles, adding a time limit, in theory, is a pretty good idea. Yeah, you know, that is another level of challenge, but like, I don't know, doing this really long battle and getting it down to a sliver and then running out of time, it's just, that's not challenging. That just stinks. And it was a real tug of war here, because despite these issues, which were pretty much present from the beginning, I did have fun. I really did. There is a lot to enjoy here. But then the further I went, it was really just, really downhill. For starters, it just gets so inexcusably repetitive. These levels basically just take chunks from the city, just like a chunk of a certain number of blocks or whatever, but they're kind of remixed. The paths, all the structures are kind of different, and there are these teleporter pads all over the place and different scaffolding. So they're very different from their regular Lumiose counterparts. The thing is, there's just so few of these levels. Like they basically created this system where it could be randomized, or at least there could be more individual elements that slightly randomize. Like it feels like it was created so that there would be a lot of different configurations, and yet there just aren't. It really is just like a handful of these levels with the exact same structure and scaffolds and teleporter pads, and like it gets old so fast. The only stuff that's actually randomized is like, you know, the Pokémon or like where the floating balls are. And then as you work your way through the story, you gain the ability to make better and better donuts so that you can enter stronger and stronger hyperspace levels. And it's an okay sense of progression. You know, better donuts let you enter higher level areas, and then your Pokemon will actually match what you're fighting. And it's nice that the timer gets longer overall as you go. But then the stakes also get higher, which means the punishment for not doing well is always higher. You're always like wasting more and more time. Like you gotta spend berries to create a good donut, but then if you go into a level with that donut and you screw up, you just waste the berries and your time. But hyperspace levels is how you get berries. So it's really easy to kind of get stuck on this treadmill of berry grinding. And as with the ZA Royale, it takes more and more points each time before you can tackle the next major challenge and progress the story. You have to do more and more hyperspace levels, so those frustrating failures get even more frustrating as you go. Like, I can spend a pretty good chunk of time and a really nice donut on a level and leave without really gaining much at all. This is where the whole thing kind of falls apart for me. I liked ZA. I enjoyed my time with it, but like that game, the developers, they were walking a tightrope. It was this very careful balancing act. This game is really, really cheap, but it is a lot of fun. Oh, it's very repetitive and grindy. Ooh, but that gameplay, I don't mind the grind too much. It was always kind of back and forth. Even like the platforming stuff, a lot of like the frustrating elements. Like, yeah, these controls are really bad, but I don't have to do that much with them. There's not too much pressure, so it's not too frustrating. Just always this perfect equilibrium. Maybe it wasn't even a tightrope. It was a mountain balanced on the head of a pin, you know, just like this huge thing. So delicately balanced, and it would wobble sometimes, but as long as it didn't tip over, everything was okay. But man, they just could not stop pushing it, could they? I am okay with economical design. Taking a thing that you've got and making a new thing with it. You know, taking the old levels and doing something new with them. These levels are familiar, they're enjoyable, so a new spin on them is also its own kind of enjoyable. You get to cheap out, you save money, everybody wins. But like, you can only take that so far. And DLC is supposed to bring in new stuff, pretty much like across the board. The DLC is where you do something new. But there's just barely anything new here. Like, even just in terms of like aesthetics and overall character, it's just the same thing but barely different. Like, this is supposed to be this bizarro world, and yet this like super washed out, completely empty, featureless city, it's just boring world. It's not bizarro at all. It's just blech. And as the story develops and you learn about the nature of what's going on, you have to wonder why they didn't do more with it. Like, this really does feel like it should be more weird for what it is. There were barely any new environments created for this game. These are almost exclusively reused places. And see, that wouldn't be so bad if they had more places to pull from, but that's the thing about the base game. There's just barely any places. There are barely any unique spaces to go. So this is like a handful of Bizarro city blocks and like Bizarro restaurant and Bizarro sewers, and like that's almost all of it. So the cheapness was already annoying, but it was still in something of a balance. But now it's just so cheap. It's just too cheap. And then the gameplay, the repetitive, grindy nature, I didn't mind grinding through the Royale. I had enough fun while I did it, and I didn't even mind the post-game too much. It did get like a little bit much at the end, but you know, I did it. I got to the end. But like, what are you giving me here? What are you giving me in this DLC? More grind? Like a lot more grind? Are you kidding me? And this DLC has like a post-game as well, like the base game, which I guess is kind of a good thing content-wise, but like that's when it gets the grindiest. It takes such an agonizingly long time to get enough points to take on all of the last challenges. And you may have to grind for the exact berries you need to make the exact recipe for the exact donut. And some of these extra hard post-game challenges, these require your absolute best 5-star donuts, and you get one shot, and if you lose, that's it. You lost the donut. Get back to the grinding board. I like to roll the credits, you know, I want to do all of the content, I want to catch all of the last legendaries and see what happens in the story and all that. But honestly, I just couldn't this time. I could not. I pushed through to get one of the post-game legendaries. I had to get at least one, but I hated doing it. And now that it's done, I cannot do more. I really would love to see the end. I want to see what happens to all the characters and everything, all the arcs tied up or whatever, but I don't know. I respect myself too much. I respect myself too much to grind for another Colbur berry. Or to grind for other berries so I can make special recipe donuts to hypothetically increase the number of berries that I get if I go into a high-level place and perform well enough and I end up getting the gold Pokeball because they didn't hide it in some stupid corner somewhere and I only had 5 seconds to find it. I don't know, I just can't do it. I'm sure there is a good to be getted. If I stuck with it long enough, a lot of this probably is a skill issue, I guess. Maybe there's nothing even wrong with this system. Maybe I'm the problem. But there are just too many blatant flaws for me to get around. There's just too much friction for me to care. This is a Pokemon video game experience where the Pokemon design philosophy is more clear than usual. What is the Pokemon design philosophy? Well, I am not a Pokemon developer, but just based on what I know about these games and how they have very small budgets and very strict timelines, it seems that they come up with their idea, they design the game, they make the game, and then that's it. None of this, tweaking things here and there. How does this part feel? Oh, well, we realized that this element here didn't really work, so we had to back up and change it. No. This feels like a thing that probably sounded really good on paper, and it worked well enough, and they did it, and that was it. They couldn't, make any drastic changes once they had all the pieces on the board, once they had, the basic thing, once they had the basic shape, There were so many ways they could have fixed it, they could have changed it, they could have added in other elements to make it so much better. It really would not have taken a whole lot, but I think that was probably just not an option. Well, all of these mechanics are not the only thing about Mega Dimension to enjoy and or not enjoy. There's also the story. This is basically a whole new campaign that takes place after the end of the base game. And I will say, it was nice to see these characters again. It really was. In my review of the base game, I talked about my kind of love-hate relationship with these characters, because most of them are such jerks. They're so abrasive, so unlikable, but that itself is kind of a fun twist for a Pokemon game. So they were enjoyable in their own unique kind of way. But you know what? This DLC, they really grew on me here. This DLC is singularly responsible for pretty radically changing how much I enjoy a lot of these characters. The dialogue is pretty good. They did a pretty good job on the dialogue. Some pretty good writing in there. Some good jokes. Some really, I already talked about how the base game is already the funniest Pokemon game I've played, but I think some of my favorite jokes from ZA overall were in this DLC. Some pretty good lines. And again, it's all just slightly more mature than usual, than most Pokemon games. A little bit less wholesome and sparkly-eyed, idealistic. Best of all, though, the characters have just got a lot more room to breathe. There was a lot more space to develop some of the characters that were underutilized before. And I think this was purposeful on the part of the devs, because there was a lot less Naveen and a lot more Lita, for example. And then you've got the new characters, Ansha, mysterious little donut girl, and then Karina, who seems to be a returning character from X and Y. She's a, mega evolution enthusiast. And they're fine. you know, they're okay. Karina's fine. She's not like super duper interesting, but she's okay. And then Ansha is definitely more interesting, but she really gets a lot of screen time. And if I did have a problem with the story, it's that it's kind of a double-edged thing where I did like returning to these characters and they have a lot more room to breathe and everything. But I also feel like the game, it's very, very talky. It really gives, again, a lot of screen time to Ansha. These like kind of long sequences where it really is just like multiple scenes stacked up against each other of the characters just kind of chatting with her, and I'm like, I'm not like, she's a new character. I'm not that invested in her. It did get a little boring. Obviously, it would be a lot better if there were more like story events, you know, cutscenes and whatnot. But for the most part, it's really just talking heads. Although, back on the plus side, I really like how much this game references the greater Pokemon world. You know, base game was already really good at that, but if you liked that, there is like so much more of that here. They'll just get into casual conversations and just bring up other regions and other events and characters. And I really love how much they're doing this now. I really hope this is a trend going forward because I don't know, it really does help me feel like this is one big ongoing world. Like the game's always felt so disconnected to me before. So like this is really nice. They're really just kind of meshing everything together. Like this is Lumiose, so it's X and Y, but then there's been like a whole bunch of Sinnoh love and all the ties to Arceus. But then here, there's like a bunch of Hoenn love. There's like a ton of Hoenn stuff in this. And then this is for me. Again, no spoilers, but the whole like Bizarro Lumiose thing, the game dips its toe into some kind of cool metaphysical ideas. Just some like little, you know, like kind of trippy reality kind of stuff. I always think that's a lot of fun. And like, it's just a little dip here and there. You know, it's like, it's nothing really deep, but it does toy with some really fun ideas from time to time. Every once in a while, a character will drop a little line that's just kind of like, whoa, whoa. Yeah, man, right on. One last annoying thing about the story, though. The story gives you a lot more just like battles with the other characters, which is a lot of fun. There's a lot of these like 2-on-2 battles, and I don't know, they're fun. The dialogue is funny. They act almost as kind of like a reunion with these characters. But then like this DLC is meant to be played exclusively at level 100 for your entire team. And these trainer battles, they're all level 75. I don't get it. Like it's not a huge deal or anything, but it's just like, what though? Like, why though? Like, what? This is level 100 DLC. Why are they level 75? I don't get it. As with the base game, there is, of course, fun to be had with Mega Dimension. I can say I enjoyed my time to a degree. You know, the basic loop was fun for a bit. I had some good times with it. The new rogue mega battles, those were cool. Just like a lot of good fights. You know, you like a good fight. There's plenty of good fights to be had in Mega Dimension. And I'm glad that I got to enjoy the story and the characters and all that. It's just the whole thing scraped its butter over way too much bread. In the adult world, we sometimes enter deals even though we know we're getting ripped off. You know what I mean? Like if you've ever bought a used car, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like sometimes if you want a thing enough, you pay the price. You know you're not getting a good deal, but if you want the thing enough and this is your only offer, then fine, sure, whatever. But when you're the person with the thing, when you're the person with the power in the situation, you have to know when to stop. You can only push it so far before you throw the whole thing off and the person just says no and walks away. And like between me and Pokemon, there's kind of an unspoken deal between us. I know they're swindling me. They know that I know they're swindling me, but they also know that I sure do like my Pokemon, and I'm usually willing to swallow my pride and put up with a whole lot in order to get it. Again, It's a delicate balance, and that balance has maybe never been so delicate as it was with the base game. Lots of people liked it a whole lot. I mean, like, across the board, pretty much everyone can agree. Like, no, it is cheap. Like, it definitely should have been more. But, you know, there are plenty of people who still loved it to pieces, and then a whole lot of other people who think this is an absolute insult to gaming. Me, I was somewhere in the middle. You know, a lot of problems with the game, but that combat was just so good. That real-time combat, it really propped the game up. The combat's still fun, but like, they played that card. You know, it's old news. It's not the same boulder propping stick that it used to be. And they have simply pushed that boulder too far. They have demanded too much and delivered too little. For me, at least. Of course, that line, that amount that it takes to push the boulder over is gonna be different for everyone. I'm not telling you that there's no audience for this. There are so many people out there, like it or not, there are so many people who just love Pokemon. They don't even really care what's going on. As long as there's Pokemon to catch, you know, items to collect, legendaries to hunt down, shinies to hunt, just boxes to tick, they're good. And if that's you, more power to you. If you really, really loved every second of ZA, then like, this is more ZA. Period. A hardcore Pokemon fan is still gonna get just like probably dozens of hours out of this. But if you're below that line, maybe a little bit more like me, kind of a casual Pokemon enjoyer, then this is a really hard sell. If this were like a $15, maybe $20 DLC, sure, but like, it's like half the price of the base game, and it wouldn't be as bad if the base game itself had more to it, but it's just, I don't know. It's two cheap products in one now. Mega Dimension, it makes $20 for Emerald Rush. Seemed like a steal, honestly. And then last thing, just to add insult to injury. Base game. To get the shiny charm, to dramatically increase your odds of finding shinies, you had to complete all of the research tasks, including the one that's just do 1,000 trainer battles. I did the whole game and all of the post-game content, which was a lot of grinding trainers, and I got to like 500. This DLC introduces new research tasks, so if you buy the DLC, you can get enough points to get to level 50 and get the shiny charm without having to beat 1,000 trainers. So if you want that shiny charm, but you don't want to spend 10 hours or whatever grinding trainers, sorry, that'll be $30. Oh, and if you already did spend the time grinding trainers to get the charm, sorry. Jeez. Yeah, sorry, Pokemon Company. There's scummy, and then there's scummy. Ugh. What can I say? Pokemon gonna Pokemon. Why is the floor wet?